Here I am again, Stephen Williams. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Veil. For those of you who have been here, come here, thank you so much for visiting the channel. For those of you, if this is your first time, I appreciate you. Let me get rid of these glasses. I appreciate you coming. Please take a moment, subscribe somewhere down here, and get the notification bell so that you will be notified when we're having something great that's happening behind the veil. And this week, and as always, I talk to you about this channel. This channel deals with the fact that we are fighting to be fit, but we're fighting to be fit in our finances, in our focus, in our faith, and in our fitness, our finances, our faith, our focus, and our fitness. Is those four particular areas that will take a lifetime trying to actually make sure we do well in as far as life is concerned. And I am here to give you some information. I am so excited. Next week, we're going to have an interview. We're going to have an interview with somebody, and we're going to talk about how they got where they were and the stuff that happened to them behind the veil and being successful and the paths. And so each one of these sessions is trying to give you, or giving you, not trying, we're giving you information, we're giving you tips, we're giving you hints of how to become better, how to do better, how to act better, how to progress. And I'm trusting that we're going to give you some methods, some things. I may look a little shabby today, but I wanted to make sure that I got it. All right. So there are two areas this week. There are two particular areas that most people really have a problem with. One of them is relationship. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to have a moment. We're going to have an actual session on living single, living married, saving single, and celibate, and starting over, divorce. We're going to go through the whole gamut on relationship, because I think you need to know what's happening behind the veil with people who look like they have it all, but there are some other things that are happening there. And then the other area that is really huge is our finances. And so tonight, I want to share some things with you about finances that I've learned that was behind the veil that a lot of people really don't talk about. And I want to make sure I give you some tips on how to improve in your finances. You're going to say, now, Williams, you're not a financial guru. I am not. This is just my information, the things that I've learned. But we're actually going to interview someone who is actually a financial person, an accountant, if you will. And we're going to go over some methods to help you. But tonight I wanted to give you the first part of that puzzle. And these are the things that if someone had just taught me or said to me when I was early on in my life, if I could have gotten this information, it would have made my life 10 times better. And so here we go. Finances. Whoa, huge thing. Huge, huge, huge. It is the mechanism by which we are trying all the time to increase. We're trying all the time to do better in. We're trying all the time to get better. We're trying all the time to have enough so that we are not living from paycheck to paycheck. And how do you first do that? So let me go back. I didn't know anything about credit. I didn't know anything about money. Nobody really taught me. They taught me a lot about church. They taught me a lot about Jesus. This is my mom. They taught me a lot about praise and singing and music. And then when I get in school, they taught me a lot about sports. They taught me a lot about activity. Nobody really said to me anything about credit scores or about savings or about when you have those moments where things just go awry. How do you handle it? What do you do? How should you be prepared? And so when we get behind the veil, the illusion is that there are a lot of people, especially in the church world, which is the world that I typically come from. And even I work in the secular world. I work for a university, Wake Forest University. And even in that, and I own my own business. I have my own. So I've got these three things that's happening in my life. And it requires all of them in order for me to do this. So here's item number one. There is something called a credit score. If you're not careful, we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to deal with that. But when it comes to finances, here is the trick. Here is the ultimate trick. You have to create, and it's so simple. You have to create more income and spend less than you do when it's time for you to get ready to do something powerful. You have to spend less. You have to make more and spend less. And I know that sounds crazy, but most people are saying, credit score, how do I get that up? How do I increase my credit score? Sometimes people don't even know what it is. I think we're a little more educated now. But I want to first start. You can't do anything. I don't care who you are. You can't do anything until you establish a budget. How much money do you really have coming into your house? How much money do you have going out? Before you can establish anything, you have got to know, what do you bring in? This is pre-tax. This is, you go from your gross. You find out exactly how much are they taking out on your job. What are they taking out? What is your health benefit? What is the FICA? What is your federal money? What is your state money? What do you have coming out of your check? What is the amount? Because when people say, oh, I make $80,000 or I make $60,000, you really don't make $60,000. Typically, most of us are taxed off of that $60,000 at 26, 27%. So when people say my salary is $90,000, take 27% off of that, because it is not, go get your checkbook, go get your check stub. You have to create and find out exactly how much do you bring into your house. How much is actually going out. Then you have to get that list and find out, all right, my house, my mortgage, my car insurance. You have to add in all of the insurances that you have. You have to add in anything that you are, anything that automatically comes out. What bills do you have? You need to look at them. You need to see it on paper. And all this other thing, stuff about no. The first thing you have to know is, how much do I have? How much do I spend? What do I owe? Because a lot of people were getting cars, and I'm getting ready to share something with you I should have done this back before you got your tax return, because I want you to think about this for 1 minute, okay? So you're going to get your tax return, all right? And let's say, let's just deal with your tax return. And I just want to share with you some of the things that is happening to your money, which is why you don't have as much as you think you have. A lot of people, the first thing we want to do is we want to go purchase something that we haven't been able to get all year long. But here is the mechanism of how money works as I see it. Here's the mechanism as how money works. And this is the stuff that's happening behind the veil. So you get your money or you get your check. You don't realize. So let's go with that. Before we go to your tax refund, let's go with your check. So you're going to get your check, and that check is taxed at 27%. If you got a bonus, that part of your money, which is up and above your income, if you really got a bonus, that money was taxed at 35 to 40%. Okay? But now let's go with just your regular check. So you get your check and it is already taxed 27%. Now this has nothing to do with any other things that you have automatically drafted out of. And you need to find out, what is your gross, what is your net, what you actually bring home, and what is the percentage that you have. Now, get this. This is how the money works. And this is why you are slipping, or why we have been slipping. And this was brought to my attention. So when you go and get gas off of that same money that you just got from your paycheck, and this is going to hold true also for your income tax return. So when you get that money and you go get gas, guess what's the common denominator that's happening with gas? Gas is being taxed. Okay, so you're going to go out and you're going to eat. You're going to spend that money on going out to eat versus eating at home. But we'll talk about that. When you go out to eat, it's taxed again. In North Carolina, it's at 7.6%. So here it is again. Each time you spend it, you're going to go buy clothes. Guess what? Those clothes are taxed again. That's 3. When you go buy groceries and go to the grocery store, guess what's happening? That money is being taxed again. You're losing 7.6% every time you swipe. Gas, food, clothes, anything that you purchase, you got to remember, and you don't see it, that money is actually being taxed again. So you're losing 7.6. So out of the gross money that you bring into your house, 7.6 of that, if you spend it on items, food, clothes, gas, shopping, bills, whatever it is, everything is taxed. So you think you have, let's say you have $60,000 and you are 27% of that is being taxed from your income. You have to then add an additional 7.6% in North Carolina, because another almost 8% of that is being taxed again. So you get 27, and now let's say you're doing 20, let's say you're getting 26 or 27, and you add 8 more percent. So now you are being taxed 35% of your money. 35% is being taxed. It is the way America runs. And so when I was looking at my gross income, and then I was looking at what I was being taxed and the things that I was coming out, I had to then, if I was going to spend money, going out to eat, doing anything, I had to then add another almost 8% to the money that I can't even utilize, because it's going back into the pot again for taxes. So each time you get your bill money, you have to be strategic about how you spend your money, which is why a lot of people say you should save it. Well, if you save it, honestly, you're not even really making 2.000, but what you should do, and I believe in the parts of Dave Ramsey, you should put some of it in an emergency fund. Okay, so let's say you get $1,000 in your emergency fund, but what I found out is that even that emergency fund, you're going to need more than $1,000 in the emergency fund. You're going to have to put at least $2,500. You're going to have to chip away and get at least $2,500. Why? Because you're going to have something that is going to cause you to have a bigger emergency than $1,000. We were riding down the road the other day, and as we were riding down the road, a bolt hit our tire, hit one of the tires on one of the cars. And when I saw the bolt, I knew immediately it wasn't something that was going to be patched. So I knew, if nothing else, I was going to have to buy 2 tires. Well, we did some finagling, and so you end up spending to get a whole set of tires, because or you got to get 2. Now, some of you are going to say, well, I'm going to get me some retreads, or I'm going to get something that's used. Well, what is that doing? It is delaying the inevitable, because you're going to ride off of that for a little while, and then you're going to need another set faster than you would to get a new tire. And so here is an emergency. Well, you throw that emergency on to an unexpected paying your tax accountant because you got to pay for your taxes. That's not a part of your budget. And then just throw on anything else. Please don't go to the hospital. Please don't allow anything to happen that you need that is not a part of the budget. So you should be saving. You should have something of an emergency fund that's like $2,000 or $2,500, because if not, then you're going to, if you have credit cards, you'll have to actually go back to using your credit cards just to make it through, because you used all of your money for your emergency. And so when you look at that, please add another 8% to your taxes, because if you're going to spend it, whatever you're doing. Now, here was a huge thing that was a problem. Eating out was a huge problem, and still is a huge problem. When you eat out and you spend that kind of money, that money is actually wasted away. Just think about it like this. If you spend $5, let's say you spend $5 on coffee at Starbucks a day, and let's say you go out to lunch every day, maybe you get a Happy Meal or something, you get just a little something for $5. Okay, so that's $10. That's $10 a day times 5. You just did $50 a week. When you start adding up that money, and each time you do that, each one of those times, it's being taxed 7.6%. So you're really not even getting the full benefit. And so everybody, taxes is just the way America works. And so you have to figure out a way how to do that. And one of the ways, and we'll get back into this, and we're going to have another session on this. But your first thing is, one of the ways is you probably need to own a business, because there are some benefits and some tax breaks to owning your own business. But one of the ways you have to do, the first thing you need to do is establish what's coming in. How much do I have? And then it is at that point where you need to figure out whether or not you need to gain another stream of income, and make sure it is something that you can do. I'm pulling in streams of income, but right now I am the stream of income, and I'm trying to get to the point where my money is actually making money, or it is a stream. I found out you can't do every get rich quick scheme. You have to come up with something that is within your ability and you're passionate about, because if you don't do that, those little things that people come up, those multi-level marketing things, they work for a season. If you don't get in the front of it, you're going to lose that money. And it's very difficult. You have to make sure it is something that you're passionate about, that you can actually do. You have to create those streams of income. If you don't do that, you're going to always be behind. And so you're talking about cars, you're talking about tires, you're talking about if you own a house, and owning a house is a powerful thing. But what good is it if your credit score is low? One of the things I want you to do, and I'll have to come back and do this, one of the things I want you to look at, get your credit score, and here's the key. Certainly it is paying your bills on time. You can pay your bills on time all you want to, and I've done it. I've been successful with that, and I've seen my credit score go up and down, trying to gain some understanding on it. But initially, when you have a low credit score and you get a car, you get a high interest rate. And if your interest rate is high, then you're paying double for a car, because your interest rate is high because your credit score is low. And so I've been able to raise my credit score. But one of the things that you need to look at in raising your score, not only is paying your bills on time, and we're going to get a credit person here. I have a good friend who does it, and she's powerful at it. But you're gonna have to look at, here's a key thing. The major thing is utilization rate. How much of your credit have you utilized? And so I share with everybody, if they give you $2,000 for a credit card, you really only have $1,000, because the moment you go over more than 50% of using your credit, your rate goes down. And my problem is not paying bills on time. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to pay my bills on time for a long time, 10, 15 years, or 10 years at least. And when I look at my credit score, but what keeps my score from getting into 750, 800 is the utilization. The utilization of the credit is too high. So you're having to pay those bills down. You're having to pay those bills down to see. So check your score, but check your utilization rate. You must pay your bills on time, because if you miss that timing, it's going to be a bad day. And so these are some things that I found out that's happening behind the veil. That's in the church, out the church, up the church, down the church, around the corner. If you go to the club, whatever it is, finances and relationships are a crucial part of the development and the growth of a person's life. The Bible declares money answereth all things. Well, it does answer all things. It can't handle emotions, but it will answer all things. But if you don't have any, then no wonder you're frustrated about the things. You got to find out where you are. You got to stop. And the moment you know you're overspending, stop spending. Just cut some things out of your life. If you want something greater, you have to create some level of discipline. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in my next segment on our finances, because you got to be able to create some level of discipline and delayed gratification if you want to really be successful. If you want to be successful in your finances, you got to have some delayed gratification. You can't get everything that you want when you want it, how you want it at that moment, if you want to be financially out of debt. And I want you to know, everybody don't have to be super duper millionaires. You do the math. You do the math. If you go back and do the math and just add in, do this for me, add in $15,000 a month times 12, or just add in $10,000 a month times 12. And can you imagine that you can make $10,000 a month times 12? And when you look at that figure, it is not $1 million at all. Now, how many of you can really think you can do pretty good off of $10,000 a month? Do me a favor, add $20,000 a month, and you're going to find out it's not as much as you think it is. It is something that if you work hard, it is obtainable. And I try very hard to watch every dime. I get a receipt for everything that I do. I write it down because I need to know where my money is going, how I am spending it. I'm trying to make sure I'm a good steward over this money. It's one thing to give my 10%. It's a shame to squander the 90% that I've been blessed to have. 10% you can give to the church. 10% you need to figure out how to give or sow into yourself. Now, you've got 80%. And out of that 80%, you've got to figure out a way how to make sure that, no more than 60% of that is used on bills, because you need at least 40% to start saving and putting back so that you can enjoy and go places and save up for those big trips and for those wonderful things. I hope this has piqued your interest to maybe look at your finances. It's one thing to be spiritually solvent. It's one thing to be spiritually great and then fiscally ignorant. And so we have to create a balance, and you have to talk to your kids about it. You've got to show them how this system works. We're so busy trying to make sure that we give to them that we are creating some real monsters when it comes to this money. And I promise you, when it's over and said and done, you want to have more in your savings. You want to have more in your emergency fund than you do in just spending. You got to create some different streams of income. And so when we get behind the veil, it is good for you to start studying and looking at all things so that you can be better and you can do better and you can have better. Just a little delayed gratification, look for sales, all of those good things. But that's the stuff that's happening behind the veil. And people are talking about you can speak in tongues and still be financially. Isn't that amazing that there are a lot of people who speak in tongues and run around and jump and shout? Isn't that amazing that they have no money? They're basically giving so much money to tithes and offerings and to all of those things, but they're not looking at exactly what's happening and what's coming in. I do what I do to make sure that I'm trying to get away from paycheck to paycheck living. And it's a shame that you've been blessed with gifts to get you out of that. And I know I got to have another conversation about this that's happening behind the veil. because you should be obtaining more than you're losing. And it shouldn't be stressful for you to live a good, financially solvent life. There are so many ways and so many opportunities for us to do that. And we're going to tap into them as we get behind this veil. And ultimately, God wants you to be wealthy. He is, in fact, the scripture declares he's giving you power to get wealth. And so we're going to talk about, how do I get wealth? How do I gain wealth in the kingdom? What do I need to do? And still not look like I'm just living a low life. There is an actual way to get this done. And I'm excited about being able to share it with you. Listen, please join me next week. We're going to talk a little bit more behind the veil on some of these things and in our finances. And I can't wait to share with you tips from experts on how we can raise our credit scores, what it is that we need to do so that you can have business plans and business ventures so that you can do something and live your best life. It is time for you to live your best life. We must fight to be focused. We must fight in our faith. We must fight with our fitness, and we've got to fight in our finances. All of this is happening behind the veil. I appreciate you. Please subscribe. Tell some people this is a well-balanced channel. It is not just one-sided, because your life is not just one-sided. And so we go through these things so that we can help each other become better. Join me next week for another segment, Behind the Veil. And I'll see you. Thank you so much, Stephen Williams. I appreciate you. And we're going to continue to give out more information on this topic. Let's talk about it. We got to talk about depression too, because it's a serious thing. And what does the word say about it versus what is happening in our society? Much love for you. Invite somebody, subscribe, and I'll see you next week when we get Behind the Veil.